Hi, hello, it's me. I'm alive. I'm back home in the States. And as you can see, I've got my beautiful medal. There she is. I also got it engraved on the back, and this is Braille, and it reads, "We finished together." So this is really cool. This medal, I have to it's gonna be a bittersweet retelling of the story in race day. So if I get emotional, I apologize in advance. But this race was so difficult in so many ways, and I'll tell you all about it right now. Welcome to my corral. Oh my god. Yeah, please be doing that. But I think it's all right. So London, my worst race, my most painful experience, and yet my most cherished world marathon major. This is star number 3. I am currently on my 6-star journey, so I have Boston, Chicago, now London. This fall I will be getting Berlin, and then hopefully next year, I will go to Tokyo, and I want to end in New York. But let's focus on London. London. So if you have been following my journey, you know that I have been training for a specific time. I wanted to do better than my Chicago time, which was about 6.5 hours. That race, Chicago, was wonderful. It was so much fun. The crowds were wild. It was just a good experience. And I was relishing in every moment. I took time just to, party at the little party stations. It was fun. But with London, I wanted to not only take in the sights, but I also wanted to get a personal record on my marathon time. But that didn't happen. The weather was perfect. London is notorious for having winds or rain for their springtime marathon, but on race day, everything was perfect. It was in the upper 40s, and it was somewhat cloudy, so sunny, but a little cloudy. It was perfect. Very beautiful, and very light breezes. Just so nice. Perfect racing conditions. It was just like Chicago last year. It was superb. Thank heavens that it didn't rain, because I was really worried about that. I've trained this cycle in the rain where I've been soaked. I trained in the snow where I've been cold. I slipped on ice at a race a few months ago. So I was really, really dreading race day, but it all came and went perfectly. I also had a great nutrition plan laid out. I did my carb loading. I did all my hydration. Everything was wonderful. I had no issues at all with bonking or with fueling and hydrating on the course for race day. That was great. So a little bit about the logistics of the actual event. Again, this was my first London. First time I've traveled internationally for a race. On race day, I had to ride the underground from Canary Wharf, where we were staying, out to Greenwich, which is where my start line was. I was in the Red Corral, so I didn't start in the traditional Blackheath, where the race typically begins. I actually was in a different area. So I was in Greenwich, and from the stop I had to get off of the underground to walk to my starting area. It was about 1.5 miles, and so it was nice because you just follow this pilgrimage of people. There's a ton of people. You can't get lost. All the racers are walking towards a specific direction. So we made it to the park, and that's where things kind of got a little hairy. There were signs, yes, but then there was mixed messages on, oh, the start line, you have to go this way, because this park is massive. It's huge, and it's hilly to where you can't see, distance wise. It's, something could be over that hill or whatever. So messages were getting a little mixed up by people just kind of spreading out and going everywhere. Some people were saying, oh, start line, you have to go this way for red. Others were saying you gotta go this way. So I was hearing all this chatter. Some people I saw walking back, and people were saying, no, the start line's not over there. So that was kind of wild. But I actually went and found a race volunteer. They were dressed in these big purple things, and just, volunteer splashed across their clothing. And I asked them, where do I need to go? And the man I spoke to said, oh, over this hill. So I went over the hill, and that's another thing. Hill. To get to my start line, I think I have video of it. There's this steep hill that we all had to walk up. And we were joking, the people I was with were saying, I bet the elites don't have to deal with this. They get helicoptered in. And so it was all fun. We were just griping about it collectively, but it was a great, great experience. That hill, though, I was not expecting. So that was pretty funny. But got into the red. I immediately jumped in the line for the toilets because those things are long. And even though I didn't have to go, I thought, let me just be sure. And I dropped off my bag at the lorry checks so that they can, transport my little clear bag to the finish line. I had checked in my bag, then I started walking off, and I was about halfway through this field to get to my starting wave area so I could do my stretches, etc., when I realized I didn't have my phone. And I I realized that I had put my phone into that check bag while I was using the toilet. So, and I just gave everything. So I realized, and I didn't have my throwaway clothes. It was a whole thing. So I had to boogie back over because that my specified lorry was going to be closing. So I had to book it back over. I got to the lorry area. This is just the spectacular Chelsea moments that I have, one of 1,000 for the day. I asked the volunteer, "Can you please give me back my bag? I left my phone in there and I need my phone." And the guy, he had the best sense of humor. He just looked at me, stared at me, and he goes, "Sure." And he just continued staring at me. And I said, and so I'm trying to explain to him, all the bags are clear. So I'm like, "Oh, my bag has a phone with a red phone case, and it has, I'm naming off these things that are inside the bag." And he looks at me and he goes, "Why don't you just give me your bib number and I can get that for you?" So I had to lift like my sweater and show him my bib number because duh, hello. And so he went back over, was able to retrieve my bag. I got out my phone and I put my pullover into, so I just wasn't ready. Put everything into that bag and there we go. And he was a champ and he just laughed at me, wished me luck, and I left. After dropping off my bag, I got over to my starting wave area. I was in wave 11 for the Red Corral. It was really neat how these corral stations were set up. It was set up by odd and even numbers. So the corral 1 handled waves 1, 3, 7, whatever it was, odd numbers, and the other waves handled like evens. Anyway, it was all just kind of like segmented, which is really neat, because what happens is you get to your assigned corral area. I sat down, I did my stretches. There's a lot of people doing stretches. I did my warm-ups, and I just wanted to get on the ground because I knew that I would be spending a lot of time on feet. So I wanted to rest. I had about 20 minutes to spare. So that was perfect time for me to go through my warm-ups on the ground, etc. And then we got the note, they announced, "Hey, wave 11, it's your turn, your turn to party." So we got onto the, and they had these big screens all over this area so you could actually watch the elites racing. It was really neat because I got to see, the starting group of both the male and female elites. I missed the wheelchairs. However, I got to see the runners. So that was really, really cool to see just kind of on the screen and see the, pace car, the cameras on the back. I got to see that from that perspective. That was really cool. And they called my group, Wave 11, to get into the corral. So I got into the corral. I tossed my throwaway clothes, which is a ratty pair of pajamas that I had. And that pair of pajamas you just don't want to get rid of and you wear for comfort. I got rid of mine. It was a little heartbreaking. I'm still kind of sad about it, but got rid of it. And you get into this little packed corral, and then there's a group of people, volunteers in front of you, that then walk you into the actual race course. So unlike Chicago, where you get into your corrals or letter grouping, and then you just kind of walk forward and you're already kind of on the road to your start line, this was different. So for London, you had to get into your corral and then you walk as your group, a little bit, and then you get to the actual road or lane that the race is on, the start line's on. And so we walked around, got to that start lane, and that's when you start like walking together with the bigger group, the other waves from the other corrals, and you just kind of all walk forward. I made it a point, because my coach said that it can get pretty crowded, and that is true. It got very crowded, and I'll explain a little more. But I made a point to stay on toward the end or toward the edge of my corral, because I didn't want to get in the way of anyone. I didn't want to trip up anybody, because I knew that for my pacing, I go out conservatively at the start of a race. I start off slower in my pacing, and then I gradually pick up after my warm up around 4 miles. So I wanted to get off to the side just so that, people that are eager and just bursting with anticipation don't, plow over me. So I went off to the side and I got to see a start line. I started at exactly 11:11, which was really cool because that's just my husband and I's thing. So he had texted me actually after I started the race. He said 11:11 is a great starting time. So I was feeling great and fantastic. The race started, crossed the start line. I was ready to go, and I settled into my easy warm-up pace and the plan was to run that for the first 4 miles. And that's what I did. It was wonderful. As I mentioned, the corrals get very crowded. So at the start of the race, up until mile 4, we're packed in like sardines. And I was running and I had my arm swinging, and I was rubbing against the person to my right. And you could just feel like the bumping of the group collectively, as we're all trying to like settle into paces and trying to get out at the same time. That was quite wild. And the start of the race is downhill. So for the first 3 miles, you're basically going like a very, I'm not going to say steep, but it's a gradual downhill that you go. And you're stuck with your red wave or the red corral for those first 3 miles. And then starting at around the 5K mark is when you see the other corrals. So I believe there's also green, blue, and I think there's a yellow, but I think yellow and blue are together. I'm not really sure, but you see like 2 other corral groups, just kind of all merging together. And that's what makes your whole race experience. So if you thought it was crowded already, like running with just your corral, just wait until you reach that 5K mark, because that's when all of the other start lines merge and you're running with thousands of people. And it's still that same sardine sentiment that I was talking about, because you're all just kind of like bumping. So from the start of the race, I do want to mention, from the start of the race to that 5K mark, it was pretty quiet. It was mostly neighborhood. So you had some families outside their homes cheering, a lot of kids. Actually, I will say there were a lot of kids in that first 5K holding out their hands, and I'm running, and that was fun to be on the edge, because I was running by and like high-fiving a bunch of people and a bunch of littles along the way. That was really fun. But it's mainly like households that are spectating in that first 5K. After you merge with all the groups, that's when you see a lot of pubs and and the crowds from those pubs. There's live music, there's noise and screaming and cheers, and I can't tell you how many times I run across a confetti cannon and had confetti all over me. It was just phenomenal. It was such a great experience. It was so much fun. London, you truly did not disappoint when it came to crowds and spectator support. That was unreal and unlike anything I've ever experienced. It was so much fun. Despite the fact that you're packed in like sardines with thousands of other people, that atmosphere, just, chef's kiss, was brilliant. It was great. Another thing I'll say about London is that the costumes from the runners are really cool. At the start line, I met a few people in costumes. There's a woman in a flamingo, dressed as a flamingo. She's in a flamingo suit with the beak and head piece on top of her head. I met a guy who ran dressed as I think it was a piranha. It was some sort of fish. But he was explaining all the specs to his little thing. He made his entire costume, and it was brilliant in the colors, just these vibrant blues and greens, and it was so pretty. And it was made out of this sturdy foam. And then on the inside, he had these lights, or this light station, so that if he at any point wanted to have lights projected on the outside of his costume, he could press it. So at the starting area where we were, he had his stuff plugged in so that I could charge, so that he could have all these lights for the race on his costume. It was really cool. So it almost looked like it had a swimming effect, if that makes sense. It was really cool. So I met him. I've met couples. There was a Mario and Luigi. There was a guy carrying a refrigerator or a washing machine, dishwasher on their back. It was insane. And I will say he outpaced me and I was very much humbled. That was wild to see someone carrying a huge appliance on their back. I later saw someone dressed as a Roman soldier. There was a Mandalorian. There was this box. I think there's about 8 people in this huge box designed to look like a car. And so they're all connected to one another inside of this box. And within this perimeter, they're all running together. How do you do that? How do you run in sync for that distance with 7 other people? It was, I don't know, but they were all just boom together. I also saw a man dressed as one of the London phone booths, and gosh, there's a lot. There's a big brain that passed me at one point. There's a guy dressed in this big purple costume that resembled a basketball player, or looked like a basketball player. He had these big tennis shoes on. Anyway, tons of costumes. I know I'm missing out some, but these are all the costumes that I saw on course. So that was a lot of fun. And I continued with my racing. My pacing was great. And I felt really good. I felt strong. I just knew this was going to be a great race. At least that's what I believed. Just past the 10K mark, my back decided to seize up. And if you've been following me on my journey, you know that I've been having issues with my back. I've gone to PT, I've gone to chiropractor appointments, I've had massage, deep sports massage, and they seem to remedy it, but I guess in hindsight, more so putting a band-aid on the situation. And anyway, at the 10K mark, my back just decided it was done. And it wasn't like previous training runs I've done where my back would seize. I would kind of walk a little bit, maybe about 5 minutes, and I could go again and be, okay, and continue with my pacing, etc. No, this was not the case. And I learned that pretty quickly. My back seized to the point where I couldn't step forward with my right foot. And because I was on the edge of the course, I was able to kind of throw myself, if you will, off the course a little bit. I had a race volunteer near me. She walked up and asked if I was okay, and I told her, I just need a couple moments, and I'm massaging my back, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, this is gonna go away. It's no problem. I'm having a great day. It's gonna be a wonderful race. I'm gonna hit my my paces. It's gonna be fine. And as I'm massaging my back, I feel it pulsing, if you will. And I thought, well, again, it's not a big deal. So a race volunteer asked me if I needed medical. I said, no, I'm fine. I'm fine. So I started going again. I merged back into the traffic of runners, and I started to walk at first, thinking, oh, this is usually how it goes. I walk. And then when I started to pick up my pace again, that's when it happened again. And it was sharp pain. And traditionally, if you experience sharp pain in any sporting, embarkment, whatever, you're supposed to stop. Like, that's your body telling you you're done. And I didn't listen to my body, and I thought, well, okay, this really hurts, but maybe I'm overemphasizing it because of the atmosphere. And, your nerves, your anxiety, at least mine, are just all high. And so I thought, and I'm just over emphasizing this. I'm fine. So I continued to walk again. And then when I started to pick up my pace to run, it seized again. So after about the 10th instance and repetition of this happening is when it clearly dawned on me that I'm not going to have the race that I wanted. I'm surprised, I will say, that I didn't get emotional, because typically this would throw me into hysterics, if you will, just the reality and gravity of the situation. But instead I was just overwhelmed by all of the great things that were happening on course, all of these charity runners, all of these athletes and costumes and the spectators and confetti cannons and music. And I thought, okay, well, I can walk, let me just walk let me walk to 10K is what I was thinking. I'm going to walk to 10K, and then I'll run again. So I continued going. I walked, and again, same story. After those 2 miles came and went, I started to pick up my pace again, and the same thing happened. My back seized. And at this point is where I became emotional. I then texted my husband, and little did I know that my husband and my son were going to be just a half mile away to see me on course. But I texted my husband and I told him something to the effect of, I can't do this. I have to walk. And after I typed that out is when I cried. And it was a cry from the pain, for one, because that's when the pain really started setting in. It wasn't a matter of, okay, if I pick up my pace, that's when I experience pain, like it was traditionally. No, in this case, it was, okay, the pain is just here and my back is like pulsing. And when I pick up my pace is when it really hits, but it was just there. And so I texted my husband and told him, I don't think I can do this. I texted my coach, and she was tracking me from the States, and it was early for her. I think it was about 3 a.m. her time. But she then told me, and she responded right away and just told me, Chelsea, if you feel like you need to DNF and get off course, it's okay. She's giving me all these words of encouragement, and I just didn't want to accept it. I didn't want to accept defeat. I knew I was here, that I had trained to be here, and I just wanted to run my race. Around mile 9-ish is when my husband and son met me, and I wasn't expecting to see them. My husband didn't tell me, we're here, because the plan was I was going to see them a little after Tower Bridge. And so I wasn't expecting to see them, but he had decided last minute, hey, we're going to meet with mommy here. And so he's telling my son, we're going to meet mom here. And when I heard my son screaming, mommy, mommy, and I saw him, and I just cried. Oh my gosh, I lost it, because I was, in pain, and my goals were crumbling rapidly. And I saw my husband and my son, my biggest cheerleaders, and it was just surreal. And they gave me hugs, kisses, and I re-emphasized to my husband at that point, I'm gonna have to walk this. And I've been walking now, and when it's all said and done, I will have walked 20 miles when this is done. And he just told me, you can do this. I got your text. You can do this. You got this. You got this. And so he gave me a kiss, a hug, and I went on my way, and I'm power walking. It was really strange how, I guess you could say, I was sort of stuck in this power walk pace. If I sped up, my back really sharp pain. If I slowed down, my back was painful again, but it was also, I couldn't move. It was really weird. So I found out the sweet spot to keep progressing forward was to power walk. And I'm not a power walker. I'm a leisurely slow walker. I don't power walk, or I'm a runner. So there's no in between. And the fact that I was stuck to this power walk pace was just horrible. Now, I cannot emphasize enough how many times my body screamed at me to take the DNF and go to a medical tent. And I will say that along the course, maybe every mile, there was a medical tent, a big green, medical tent. And I'm just stubborn, and I thought, okay, just make it to the next one. And each one that came up to or passed by, I would see people in there, and I thought, no, I'm okay. I had people come up to me on course and ask me, are you okay? Keep going, keep it up, patting me on the back. People are screaming at me. Spectators are screaming at me. I don't have my name written on me anywhere, but they're, go, you got this, girl, And when I'm still giving high fives because I'm walking up toward the edge of the course, and people are just like, pick it up, and I'm like, I can't. So that was really tough. Meanwhile, my coach is texting me. I had another friend from Colorado here texting me, and she's just, how are you doing? Great, you're doing great. And I broke down with her too, and I'm texting her and crying, and she's giving me all these kudos, and I just was overwhelmed with the support, despite the pain I was feeling. And I received texts, as I mentioned. I received cheers through the race app. So the London Marathon has the app where you can track the runners of the race. So I gave that link to all my friends and loved ones, and even people that, just look me up through the race app. It's public information, I guess you could say. So they're able to find me. But I got a bunch of cheers and stuff from people saying, you can do this, keep going, that whole thing. Cousins texted me. It was my uncle, my aunt. It was really great. And there are race photographers. I want to mention that. So I do have some pretty great race photos. I am hashtag fake happy in them because I know these race photos will last a lifetime, and I wanted to have these iconic landmarks behind me, and I wanted to be smiling in them as opposed to crying and just, grumpy cat face. So I am fake happy in all these race photos, up until the end. The end is where you see my true, emotions out to play on my face. But for the earlier race photos, I am smiling, I'm throwing up hearts, I'm throwing up peace signs, and I have my arms wide, and I'm having, if you were to look at photos, I'm having the time of my life, but I was miserable and so much pain. But again, I was just soaking in the atmosphere because the spectators, the cheers, my supporters, and other runners were keeping me going, and I'm so grateful for that. I want to mention that all of these iconic landmarks throughout the race are amazing. Kind of passes Cutty Sark, this big ship. That is cool. You go around the whole ship. You can see the Thames, and it's so much fun. And then Tower Bridge. Oh, Tower Bridge. You see the photos. It's everywhere. In someone mentions London Marathon, there's a photo of Tower Bridge or Buckingham Palace or Big Ben, but Tower Bridge is that massive brick bridge with blue. And you see pictures of it and you think, oh, that's a nice bridge, it's pretty big. But when you see it in person, it's massive. After Tower Bridge, you go into Canary Wharf, and that's where my husband, son, and I were staying. And then you eventually get to the back point of Canary Wharf where you're coming back down, so you start to head toward Westminster, which is where Big Ben is, the Victoria Embankment and Houses of Parliament. So all of the older historical structures of London. and you pass by the eye. And I got to Big Ben, and by the time I passed Big Ben and I saw my husband and son for the last time before the finish line, before the finish line, I was bawling. Just complete emotional response to the pain I was in and the overwhelming feelings I had. At one point during the race, my grandmother, who passed away a year ago, she was there. She was with me. She was talking to me, and that was wild, and that really had me going. And it was crazy because I wasn't thinking about her. I told me she was proud of me, and her presence and her words just comforted me. I'm indebted to the people that donated to my charity, Tuesday's Children, which, by the way, I did reach my fundraising goals. Thank you. Seeing the finish line, it was beautiful. It was so beautiful. And I got to the finish line. I crossed that threshold, and they called out my name, congratulated me, and you're immediately just kind of like funneled into these corrals where you receive your medal. The volunteer told me, congratulations, you just ran a marathon. And I remember thinking, like, no, I didn't. I walked 20 miles of it, and my feet hurt, and my back is killing me, and I'm gonna die. But I didn't say anything. I think I just told her thank you. And I bent my head down. She draped me with the medal. And right as she put the medal on me, she like grabbed my hand, somehow like pushed tissue into my hand. I don't know who she was. I should have thanked her at the time. And I just lost it. I cried because I was in so much pain. But I did it. And I earned my third star toward my 6-star journey. So I'm halfway there. Overall, I learned so much from this race about myself, and I am grateful for the lessons it taught me. Sounds cliche, but it's so true. I've had a lot of reflection, not only during the race, but after the race. Was humbled during this race, but this is just the best thing that's happened to me. The course was incredible. The sights were remarkable, and this achievement it goes beyond words. So that's my story. I want to thank you for listening. I want to thank you for your support, and thank you so much for donating to Tuesday's Children, to my chosen charity. Just thank you. So we'll see you when I prepare for Berlin. I got a lot of work to do.